So, Carmen Sandiego is a good show. Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name's Cheyenne and I'm an Asian American adoptee and expat living in Brazil. And I post new videos about race, feminism, and pop culture every Tuesday and Friday, so if you're into that, please subscribe and ring the bell. So today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite shows, Carmen Sandiego, as Season 3 just dropped on Netflix. I have seen Season 3, but this video is only going to be about Seasons 1 and 2, and also the ethical consumption of media under capitalism. I will be reviewing Season 3 later this month, so stay tuned for that. And no, I have not seen the original Carmen Sandiego show, so I am purely judging this show as a standalone show. And I have divvied up this video in a numbered list, so let's get started. Number 1, why did I start watching this show? I started watching Carmen Sandiego to learn Portuguese. I watched a lot of Netflix shows to learn Portuguese, and this was like last year, so I was watching Vikings, and with an E, Coisa Mais Linda, and Carmen Sandiego. And I watched the first season of Carmen Sandiego multiple times because I had a very basic Portuguese back then, so I would have to watch each episode, but while watching the episode, pause it and write down every word I didn't know in my Lexis journal. And of course, if you don't know what a Lexis journal is, it's basically a word journal where you write down words that you don't know in another language and then write their definition and their translation. And this is to help you gain vocabulary. And after I learned what was going on, I got really into it and started watching seasons 2 and now 3. So now let me get into what happens in each season. So number 2, the season 1 rundown. So season 1 starts out in France and we see Carmen supposedly stealing something from a museum and being chased down by detectives Argent and Devino. However, it's later revealed that Carmen is stealing from the bad guys, and in this incarnation, she's actually a good guy. She hops on a train and escapes and runs into her old school friend Graham from Vile Academy, where we learn they both went to learn how to become super villains, but then Carmen left because she realized how terrible it is to steal artifacts from other cultures for profit. I personally really like the episode where she learns that stealing cultural artifacts for profit isn't what she thought it would be. I honestly think that this is a really poignant message, especially for today, where native and colonized people's artifacts are finally being returned to their proper place after sitting in the colonizers' museum for so long. Anyway, back in Carmen's backstory, she leaves Vile Academy and teams up with 2 siblings from Boston, Ivy and Zach. Together, they go around the world foiling Vile's evil plans, along with their tech genius player, and of course, the HD of all of Vile's future heists that Carmen stole before leaving the island. So back in present day, Carmen defeats Graham and goes off to find her teammates. The season culminates with Graham getting his memory wiped after he is no longer useful to Vile, and Carmen finally being hunted down by Coach Brunt and Shadow-san, 2 of Vile's professors. Coach Brunt is the one said to have mothered Carmen when she was a baby, so she feels especially betrayed. Once she finally corners Carmen, she attempts to strangle her to death, and that scene in particular is really hard to watch, but then Shadow-san comes and rescues Carmen. And it's important to note that Shadow-san was one of Carmen's first antagonists. He didn't want her to join Vile Academy, and he tried to fail her at every turn. He also publicly berated her in front of her peers and also in private. During one of the tests to become a Vile villain, the students had to get $1 out of Shadow-san's robe, and Carmen, for the life of her, could not find this dollar, and even accuses Shadow-san of not even putting $1 in the robe to begin with. But Shadow-san stands firm and tells her that she just wasn't good enough to find it. And this leads us to the biggest question of Season 1, why would Shadow-san save Carmen from Coach Brunt? Well, because he's the one that actually found Carmen as a baby, brought her to the island, and was the only one to truly love her. Carmen is hurt and confused at this information, and honestly, so was I. Shadow-san was such an ass to her for her entire childhood, but we learned that he only did it out of love. What a confusing message. But that's another reason why I really like the show. I think it strikes this perfect chord between kids show and young adult show that's so hard to do. This show will hold up for audiences because of its heavier moments, because it's clear that this show takes kids seriously. I also really appreciate that Carmen is a 20-year-old woman and not a kid or a teenager. Again, this helps the show appeal to older audiences and also makes kids want to be like her when they grow up. Overall, season 1 was pretty solid, but it was mainly backstory stuff to set up for season 2, where the real shit happens. So number 3, the season 2 rundown. So I really loved season 2. So season 2 starts out with Shadow-san giving Carmen an HD of all of Vile's future plans so she can foil them, but he's not sure if he himself should join them. I really loved how Shadow-san was unsure how Carmen felt about him and what his place was in her life, because he literally gave Carmen in season 1 PTSD nightmares. But in the end, he tells her that there was no dollar in the robe and that she was right. So she lets him tag along and help out because they're really all one another has. So season 2 is basically all action. Every episode focuses on Carmen in a new city facing a new Vile operative as Vile is trying to fill Shadow-san's spot. So some of my favorite episodes from this season are episode 3 and episode 7. So episode 3 is called The Daisho Caper, and it basically details Shadow-san's backstory, how he got into crime, and how he is estranged from his brother because he stole from his brother's museum. Shadow-san goes back to Japan to try to make amends with his brother after all these years, and his brother rejects his apology, and it's so freaking good. It also has this awesome fight in a karaoke bar with this calm music playing in the background to juxtapose the violence that's happening, and it's just really good. I also really love episode 7, The Crackle Goes to Kiwi Caper, because we see Bram again, and we now can confirm that he really has no recollection of Carmen or Vile whatsoever. We already saw him a bit in season 1 after he got his memory wiped, but in this season he's fully part of Carmen's plan. It's really cool to see him and Carmen again, and of course we get introduced to a new villain in this episode named Neil the Eel. We also get a really cool ballet sequence in this episode to a song from Swan Lake entitled Dance of the Little Swans, and it's just so beautifully done. It's probably one of my favorite moments of this entire season. But before I go on, I should also mention the episodes in season 1 that I really liked. The Duke of Vermeer Caper is just a hilarious episode, and the Chasing Paper Caper has a really cool fight on a train. Anyway, the biggest development in season 2 is that we find out more about Carmen's backstory and, of course, Acme's backstory. So Acme was introduced in season 1, and they were kind of seen as the good guys that were trying to foil Vile's plan, and them and Carmen seemed to be on the same page. But in season 2, we learn that they're actually the bad guys. We see that Acme really wants to recruit Carmen, and we think it's because they just have similar interests and goals. But Shadow-san reveals that the head of Acme, Tamara Fraser, is actually the one who killed Carmen's father, Dexter Wolf, who was actually a professor at Vile and preceded Shadow-san. Vile discovered that Wolf was planning to leave the organization, and they sent Shadow-san to remove him. But then Shadow-san discovered that Wolf had a family, including a daughter, Carmen. Shadow-san then witnessed the murder of Dexter Wolf at the hands of Tamara Fraser and took Carmen back to Vile Island. It's a huge fucking reveal in the last episode, and Carmen steals Acme's info, which angers Tamara Fraser, and Carmen then goes out to look for the only family member she may have left, her mother. So number 4, what I like about the show. Firstly, I just love how rewatchable the show is. I've watched seasons 1 and 2 probably 5 times through and never got tired of it. It's really great to just put on in the background or to really pay attention to. There's some really funny jokes and witty humor with wordplay, and also slapstick comedy with Zach and Ivy as well as Chase Deveneaux. I also really love the animation style. It's very Instagram, which I think appeals to a lot of kids and teens who are watching the show because it's so familiar. I also really like how Carmen is a good guy. I know that there was a lot of backlash when the first season came out, when we found out that she was going to be a good guy, and I don't really know why that is, except for that in the original, she's a bad guy. I personally think that that's a weird thing to be mad about, but I didn't watch the original show, so who am I to judge? But I think that it's cool that she's good, and it doesn't really change the dynamic of the show because she's still stealing stuff. If anything, it again ties into more modern sensibilities that she's stealing things to then return to the people who are actually culturally connected to them. I also really like Zach and Ivy's relationship and how they exemplify what a good, loving sibling relationship is, because they always have one another's backs, and they're also all one another has. I really hope that in future seasons we don't discover that Ivy and Zach have long-lost parents that are actually alive, because that would be kind of a cop-out and also ruin one of the themes of the show, which is found family. Carmen still having a mother is fine because they set this up since season 1, this mystery about who her parents are and where she's from and where she comes from, but with Zach and Ivy, I don't think that would make much sense. Lastly, I really love Graham and Carmen's love story. I'm a sucker for a love story, and I really hope that they get together in the end. I also wonder if they're going to pair Carmen and Agent Argent together, because they kind of teased in seasons 1 and 2 that Julia might have a crush on Carmen, so I don't know, but that'd be really cool if they did that too. So number 5, what I dislike. So as much as the show is very educational and progressive and has a lot of non-white characters, a lot of these non-white characters are also evil. And that of course makes sense, as there are more people out to get Carmen than help her. Her team literally consists of just 3 people, but it's still strange to me. For example, Tamara Frazier is a black cop who kills a light-skinned man. Like, that's kind of insensitive. Not to mention that the 4 other women of color in the show are also evil. Dr. Bellum, an Indian scientist, and Countess Cleo, a black fashionista, are both trying to kill Carmen and are vile professors. Paper Star, who's Asian, and the driver, who's a dark-skinned black woman, are also vile operatives. There is, of course, Agent Argent and Shadow-san, who are both Asian, and they're good, but it's still very unbalanced. There's also El Topo and Lechev, who are both men of color who are also evil. Though these characters are all evil, they seem to have a very big fan following, so that's really cool. And also, I think that they're all voiced by people of color, so that's another plus. And it seems as though the voice actors are really happy to be there. And I'm of course happy for them. It's really fun to play villains, and they eat it up. I also think that for most of the vile ops that Carmen graduated with, like El Topo and Lechev, that they're mostly supposed to be comic relief villains rather than truly evil. But again, it is telling that they are not main characters, but Graham, the other guy from Carmen's class who's white, is given a sympathetic and complex story. And I will give the show credit in that it does show darker skinned people as good in the one-off places that Carmen visits. For example, the Aboriginal character that we see when they go to Australia, and the Moroccan archaeologist that we see in one of the first episodes of season 1, as well as the Brazilian and Ecuadorian characters that we see when she goes to South America. But again, these are one-off characters that aren't really recurring characters in the show. However, I will say that in season 3, they do attempt and at least start to try to tackle this colorism problem. So number 6, the criticisms. Last year, when season 2 of Carmen Sandiego came out, the show got into some hot water. Firstly, there was backlash with Gina Rodriguez, who voices Carmen in the show. It's well known that Gina Rodriguez has done a few things that have signaled to people that she is anti-black, for example, singing along with the N-word, and also not including Afro-Latinas at certain Latina events. And I'm not gonna lie, that's a huge problem, especially when the show itself has kind of a colorism issue going on. I'm not going to get into it, but she's been in hot water again and again, but you can go and research it for yourself. Secondly, there was a labor rights dispute with Top Draw Animation, who works with DHX, now known as Wildbrain, to produce Carmen Sandiego. Top Draw, which is a Filipino animation studio, was paying their workers or animators under minimum wage and then proceeded to fire the whistleblower. Top Draw is apparently very well known for not paying animators what they deserve and underpaying them and not paying them minimum wage. and North American animation studios are known to outsource their work to Asia, where they can violate labor laws. And obviously that's not right. And actually, when season 2 came out last year, there was a movement to try to boycott season 2 on Twitter, but as we can see, that didn't really work, and Netflix was able to sweep this dispute under the rug. So number 7, what to do with problematic media. And yeah, I'm gonna be honest and say that I do feel conflicted watching Carmen Sandiego and enjoying it. But I personally don't think that boycotts work unless they're on an extremely large scale and there was just not enough hate or bad will built up against Carmen Sandiego for a boycott to be successful. Maybe one day, but as long as Netflix is able to sweep this stuff under the rug, most people won't know that it exists or care. And considering that this show is for kids, I don't know how many parents are out there telling their kids that this show violates labor regulations. Also, Netflix doesn't release its viewership numbers, and when they do, it's usually Netflix reporting them. And they cancel really beloved shows out of seemingly nowhere, like one day at a time. And we don't really know why, because it was a really beloved show. I personally don't know what governs Netflix to cancel a show. There are probably shows on Netflix with 5 seasons that no one watches, and shows that are really loved that only have 2 seasons, and then they cancel them. In all, I do think that we should obviously fight for better labor rights, as well as better representation of Black and dark-skinned women on TV shows, but again, that's more of a structural issue within Hollywood itself. And that's a problem that I don't think would be solved by canceling a show and then putting 10 voice actors of color out of work. I also think that we need to stop equating shows we like with personal condemnations of ourselves. Just because you like a show with problematic themes or was made by problematic people doesn't mean that you yourself actually believe or support those things. There are a lot of things that I used to like, but in light of certain things, I just don't engage with anymore. But there are also still things that I enjoy that I know are problematic or were made by shitty people or under shitty circumstances that I still enjoy. So you need to draw that line for yourself. Rather than defending something that's problematic, you should be able to acknowledge those more pernicious aspects and then decide for yourself if something is worth keeping around or not. And sometimes that thing is worth keeping around, and sometimes it's worth burying. Carmen Sandiego is a good show. I might even say that it's a great show, but I do recognize that it has flaws, and I would never defend those flaws because I don't put TV shows up on pedestals. I personally suggest not putting anyone or anything up on a pedestal because it makes it that much harder to tear it down once it disappoints you. Instead, don't see media as good or bad. It's just a creation that exists. And know that your relationship with that will evolve and grow and change to maybe even the point where you can't be around that thing anymore, and that's okay. Lastly, putting something up on a pedestal, whether it be a show or a person, makes it that much harder for you to detach that thing from your own identity and your own emotions, which might make you irrationally defend something that shouldn't be defended. Like a wise woman once said, it's both possible and even necessary to simultaneously enjoy media while also being critical of its more problematic or pernicious aspects. And again, you need to figure out where you're going to draw those lines for yourself. So the conclusion. So that's it for the video. I know it took kind of a weird turn towards the end when I talked about what to do with problematic media and ethical consumption of media, but I think it's really important to have this discussion, especially when talking about Carmen Sandiego, which has gotten in some rightfully hot water and has gotten, again, rightful backlash. It's hard, it's complicated, I don't really have answers for this. I just think it's important to bring up. I'm sure that other people have, we all have our problematic faves, right? But we also shouldn't really have faves to begin with. I think that the show's good, but I wouldn't ever put it up on a pedestal or defend, the things that are wrong with it. So I guess that's it. If you have a problematic fave, leave it in the comments down below. And next video is going to be about Rio 2011, which is a movie made by Blue Sky Studios. So be sure to look out for that one. If you want to see that video, please ring the bell and subscribe so you're notified every time I post a new video. If you're new here, I post new videos Tuesday and Friday about race, feminism, and pop culture. So if you're into that, again, please subscribe and ring the bell. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, share it with someone, and of course, subscribe and leave a comment. So I'll see you all in the next one. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.